Welcome back, my friends, to the Bat discussion that never ends. Batman books everywhere. And now the return of the weekly series, Batman and Robin Eternal. Actually, really psyched for this. I really enjoyed getting weekly series. I even enjoyed Future's End until it ended in a terrible way. Batman Eternal had, to me, a pretty satisfying ending. I enjoyed it. I was glad when I got to the end. And now I find myself pretty excited for Batman and Robin Eternal. I was a little shaky on it when I heard Batman and Robin Eternal because I am not naturally a Robin fan. Uh, when I came into Batman in the 70s, it seemed like they were kind of trying to avoid Robin. And then Robin was good on his own off in Teen Titans, the new Teen Titans in the 80s. But other than that, I didn't really connect with the Batman sidekick world. And it really was only till Damian Wayne, Batman's son as Robin, that I really started paying attention to the idea of Robin and such. But reading this issue, I find myself super excited to delve into the world of the sidekicks and all the different colorful younger characters that circle around that dirty old man Batman. Not just the ex Robins, which is what we have here, just ex Robins, and but also people like Bluebird and apparently Cassandra Cain. I don't know very much about Cassandra Cain, and Spoiler I think is going to be appearing. I'm even interested in seeing more of Bluebird, Harper Rowe's brother. I forget his name, and hopefully there are other little characters circling around Batman that we will see. Missing here is Damian himself, my namesake, Bruce Wayne's son, and that's a whole kind of sticky area for me. But yeah, I'm gonna have to enjoy. I feel like I'm gonna have to enjoy this separate from my thoughts about the whole Batman world, if you will, of the current Batman world, like the Gordon Bat robot and Grayson in his own book where he's supposed to be an undercover spy and no one's supposed to know about him, and Damian Robin, son of Batman, off on his own adventures, apparently not responding to or not aware of the fact that his father still lives, but doesn't remember him. I mean, there's a whole story there. But just on its own, I'm really looking forward to Batman and Robin Eternal. Some of the good parts of the other Eternal made me interested in his larger family more too. So in the very best of worlds, this will help dig into the characters, define them more in the new regime, whether it's called New 52 or DCU or whatever it is now. But give us, as I kind of hoped and only half got from Batman Eternal, give us some solid basis. I feel like it's not as tied as closely continuity wise. I mean, before Batman Eternal was sold to us as this thing that was going to tie everything together and push forward continuity, and instead it was just a mess and everything was off kilter. But hopefully we're not caring about that so much here, and I'll be able to loosen up and enjoy it. I'm already, when I first read it, having a problem with Grayson being actively involved, but now I've pushed that aside. I let it sink in for a while, and it's just fun. As to the nitty gritties, James Tynion the Fourth really looks like he's even more the main go-to guy here. His name is first. I think he really was the one in charge last time, and I think this time it's more apparent. They didn't even mention, like they used to do in the credits, the list of all the other writers in the writer's room, so to speak, who are going to be involved, which also implies to me maybe an admittance or a stronger hand for James Tynion. And I'm hoping that he's learned a lot. I think the problem with James Tynion is he was, because of his friendship with Scott Snyder, pushed way ahead, given too much responsibility, too many big books early on, when he really should have been working his way up and earning his chops the hard way. But it did feel like in Batman Eternal, some of the best scripts were by him. So my usual complaints about him went away to a certain sense. I did feel here the way what a good way to put my problem with Tinian is for me he doesn't have the music, he doesn't have the rhythm. His stories are clunky and I don't flow through them. I keep getting stopped up by things, and there was some of that here. And there was a little bit of that in the art because I'm not totally in the Tony Daniel camp. I find sometimes it looks pretty and sometimes it looks like it lacks solid comic book storytelling or comic book dynamics. The characters, the figures look nice and yet they don't feel right to me. Their poses don't work a whole lot for me sometimes. I almost feel like a lot of times people just show up and are standing with their arms by their side in this stiff position. Kind of the opposite of the old Marvel dynamic where they're all spread out and stuff. But yeah, it's so Tony Daniel doesn't really speak to me a whole lot as an artist. James Tynion as a storyteller is a little clunky, but I still managed to enjoy this a lot. I didn't know till I saw other people's videos that this is Cassandra Cain. She's the character I know nothing about, so I'm looking forward to learning a lot more about her. A character that doesn't talk or perhaps only says mother is really interesting. I like the way Bluebird was portrayed here. I don't really, again, there's that stiffness there. I don't really get the orphan character much. I thought they could have given us something more here. There's something, like Tony Daniels is like an evolved 90s artist, and there's a lot of good stuff going on there, but there's a lot of just that posing that I don't like. And I'm repeating myself. The mysteries set up here are really good. I think there are two mysteries, but they're kind of making it look like they might be one, which is who is using Batman to create orphans and or someone who looks like Batman, the image of Batman. Because, huge spoilers in these videos about Batman. You can either be reading Batman or not watching these videos or not care. But it's kind of a cool mystery, a cool thing if someone is going through and recreating the way Batman was turned into an orphan by someone who looks like Batman, and perhaps creating large numbers of people out to get him. So we got mother and orphan and stuff, and I really like that. You kind of see maybe the hand of Scott Snyder in this stuff that is yet another way to dig at the myth of Batman. Like, we're always coming at it from different angles. We got Batman. What if Batman doesn't have the brain? What if Bruce Wayne didn't have the psychic damage that the Bruce Wayne that became Batman was? That explores in one way. What if the origin story of Batman were played out over and over again, but manipulated by someone, which is what we seem to be getting here. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out, and I hope that they manage their gang of writers better. Yeah, so like I said, I had to get past my feelings about where Grayson should be in all this and the like, and where is Damian. I have a feeling they'll pull Damian in at some point later on down the line, but we'll see. So it's just a lot of fun. I'm seeing some people, the usual suspects, doing Batman Eternal videos, but also some other people who sometimes do that sort of thing, but don't always. So amongst the newer guys are in this particular kind of project, ReademSteven and Scott from over in Scotland. I think he's in GradeA Comics, I think he's now called. Anyway, I'll put links to them down below, and anything else I can find. Like, I think Comic Book Uno did a good review of this first issue that I'll try to put a link to. Then, other than that, it was the week of Tomasi for me. 2 Tomasi books coming out on one day. Kind of strange. How come they don't recruit Tomasi into Batman Eternal? Who knows what goes on in the background, but I think of him as a really cool person to bring in, and especially dealing with the Robins and such. But for whatever reason, he's not there. Maybe he's just very busy. 'Cause certainly there's lots of material in all these Arkham Knights, which are, I think, on a weekly basis, 10 pages of this comes out digitally, and then they print 3 of those weeks in each issue. So we get 30-page issues. But it feels a bit of a jumble here, and maybe partially because I forgot some of whatever happened in the last issue, but partially because it's meant to be read on a weekly basis, and we're getting, I think we're getting 2 chapters of one story in here, and then the first chapter of the next story in here, and they're not well divided. So I found it kind of choppy. This was not my most favorite Batman Arkham Knight issue, maybe the weakest yet for me. But there was one part I loved when Amanda Waller shows up. And if it hadn't been so cool with Amanda Waller, I would have said this is just one too many complications. Like, where is this book going? But again, maybe read in all these weekly chapters, it's more like a panorama of different stuff happening rather than a focused story. And maybe that works better digitally. But anyway, I love the confrontation between Amanda Waller and Jim Gordon, especially when she says, if you're lucky, you'll still have a job when you get back. And he says, if I win any crap out of you, Waller, I'll squeeze your head. It's like he's calling her a butthead in the most graphic of ways. Pretty hilarious. And of course, that's the old school Amanda Waller drawn very cool, as a large woman who takes no guff. But other than, I think I liked the second story, which we got, the 10 pages of just the beginning of it, which is a Calendar Man story, a villain that I happen to not know anything about. So that makes it more interesting to me in a way. There's a certain feeling like when you're reading this and then you're reading other Batman books, that there's a density of repeating characters and stuff. Feels like recently Scarecrow has shown up in a bunch of different Bat books. This is a different continuity, but it still is kind of a density of repeating Gotham themes coming at you really fast when you're buying a lot of the Bat books every week. Anyway, nothing to make me drop Batman Arkham Knight, but a less exciting issue. I think Batman Arkham Knight Genesis is kind of the one to buy or the one to watch for all of this, at least for me. Of course, that could change with every time a new issue comes out. Batman Detective Comics was actually my most pleasurable read because I didn't have, although Batman and Robin Eternal is much bigger, this was more of a standard comic book story in a sense, just a superhero going on a superhero adventure to some extent with some character stuff going on various ends. But that was really satisfying and it was done really well. And for me, Tomasi at his best has that music, that rhythm of comic book storytelling that I crave and that I don't always think about until I'm kind of notice it being missing. And while the artist in here is like not the most spectacular artist in the world, I felt he was very solid and the story was very well told and I was never thrown out of the story by the art. At times it looked a little hastily done and without backgrounds and stuff, but it didn't bother me too much. It seems to me like Tomasi is doing his own take on the current Batman situation with Bruce Wayne's missing memories and young old Jim Gordon trying to be a superhero with his Iron Man suit and the difficulties of that. And I just really enjoyed the conversation between Bruce and Alfred, and I really enjoyed the way the Justice League showed up and how they, according to Tomasi, would deal with a Bruce Wayne without memories and wouldn't just take Alfred's word for it, but would send in Wonder Woman with her lasso to check on the veracity of what's going on with Bruce. You've got the powers, you use them. Tomasi, to me, takes what the DC Universe has and uses it properly. I felt pretty annoyed when Scott Snyder kind of covered similar ground, but it was just in a conversation between Alfred and Superman. So for me, this is a nice corrective, and it's the same material done right. I've seen some people, and I certainly realized they were right, saying this is ground that's been covered before. But I think that Tomasi's establishing it the way he wants it established for his book, and I hope he's able to keep his vision of the events, which he did not create. He is stuck with the robot or Iron Man Batman and with the memoryless Bruce Wayne, but he's showing us, or showing me anyway, that he knows what he's doing with this material, and he's taking it full on his own way. And I felt that same way where we get this page of showing Gordon with all his aches and pains, putting on the knee brace. I remember that from when I injured my knee from running through an airport carrying my then 4-year-old daughter or 3-year-old daughter on my shoulders. And I wore one of those knee braces for a long time before I got knee surgery. And so that makes... I had a problem with Gordon seeming too young and everything. I do still have kind of an issue with Gordon hanging out at the baseball game dressed this way. Is that how Jim Gordon dresses? Would he, maybe on his off hours, he should still wear his glasses or something? When you have contacts, you don't wear them all the time, right? Especially when you're older and your eyes dry out. I was fine with, it almost kind of emphasized Batman as Iron Man, and was Batman flying in the other versions of this? I haven't read Detective, but I mean in the other versions of Batman as Gordon Robot, could he fly? I guess he could. I just didn't think about it so much. But anyway, even as a kind of Iron Man character, he needs help. The Justice League comes along and helps him. They feel they could use his detective knowledge. Is Gordon considered one of the great detectives of the DC world? I hadn't really thought about that before. I've just thought of him as a tough cop, but I guess maybe he's a great detective too. I can buy that. This is Detective Comics. Like I said, I've probably skipped the last 6 issues of Detective, last 5 or 6 issues, and I feel like this is a great starting on point. It's basically not a reboot, but I mean it could be Detective Comics #1. It's the Pete Tomasi story. There's no reference back to whatever happened last issue. I didn't, at least that I noticed. And like I said, he's kind of restarting us with the with all the things that are going on right now in the Batman world and giving his little spin on it. So it felt like, I mean, it's not a complete story at all, but it had a nice full arc to it that brought us through the current Batman situation to the beginning of a big adventure, seemingly, with a literally big, giant skeleton in the snow somewhere. There was... although I must say the first 2 pages where we're at a cricket match in India and some gross gloop comes along and pulls out people's eyes, harvests their eyes, and takes them off, floating off into the air, I guess. There's no further connection in this issue, so that's kind of the note here. That's more writing for the trade, so to speak. Probably by next issue I will have forgotten about those floating eyes. Until something reminds me of them. But other than that, it had just a rock-solid, old-fashioned comic book feel to me that I really enjoyed. And the rhythms of the story, like I said before, worked just right for me. So that was my week in Batman. I am quite excited over Eternal. I will be talking about it weekly. I assume I will be buying every issue. I slogged my way through some of the middle parts of Batman and Robin Eternal, although I think I really liked the third act of it quite a bit. So I said Batman and Robin Eternal. I meant the earlier Batman Eternal. So I have high hopes here. And let's see what comes next. Talk to y'all later.